Hello everyone, welcome once again to another video related to DAX in Power BI or DAX in general. So in data analysis expressions which is used in Power BI, Power Pivot and analysis services, understanding of row context and filter context is fundamental to creating effective and efficient measures and calculations. So row context, what is row context? Row context refers to context within the row of the table. When you use row context, DAX evaluates an expression for each row individually, and this context is automatically created when you create a calculated column. So in the previous video we discussed how to create calculated columns and calculated measures. We discussed what is the difference between calculated column and calculated measure. So whenever you create a calculated column, each row is evaluated independently. Then if we use iterating functions like sum x, filter x, average x, etc., which process row by row. So if you use iterating function which process row by row, these functions are like sum x, average x, filter, and then it is a row context, okay, within the context row of the table. Now here is an example. Suppose we have a table called sales with columns quantity and unit price. To create a calculated column for total sales, that is quantity multiplied by unit price, you would write total sales is equal to sales quantity into sales unit. Let's see this in Excel, okay? You will understand the row context easily. So for example, this is, let's say this is product name, this is quantity, and this is unit price, okay? So we have product name, quantity and unit price. Let's say product name is chai, quantity is 12, and this is quantity and this is 1 unit price. This is total number of units, okay? Let's say the price is 1200. Similarly, let's say we have a product monitor, we have 10 quantity and 1 unit price is 5000. Similarly, there is another thing called laptop. We'll use the three examples, and here we have 19 quantity and average price is 45,000. Okay, so suppose this is some data. Now in row context, when you will create a calculated column, let's say something like total price, okay, so if you will create something like this, what will it be? It is this into this here, right? This multiplied by this here. So you will write something like is equal to B is equal to C2 multiplied by B2, okay, and you will simply run this, okay. So this is a row wise calculation. We can do the same thing, the same type of formula we can apply in Power BI also. So this simply means row context. So in the sample superstore sales analysis, we have this table orders, and in this table also you have quantity, right, and you have sales. So something, for example, you want to this is sales, this is profit, right? So you want to calculate total price or something like that. So in that case, uh, we have the sales price and the profit. You want to calculate the cost price. You can apply row wise calculation, right? So that is what we have discussed here. So total sales will be sales into quantity multiplied by sales unit price. Here sales is the name of the table. Similarly, we also have a filter context. Filter context is a more complex concept, and it refers to the set of filters applied to data when DAX expression is evaluated. So filter context is created by explicit filters applied in the report like slicers, page filters, etc. Calculated columns and measures that inherently apply filters, and DAX functions like calculate, which can modify the filter context. So suppose you have a measure that calculates the total sales, like total sales is equal to sum of total sales. Here we have some measures. So in orders, you can see we have something like total revenue, right? So suppose we want to calculate total sales here. So we have opened a fresh Power BI. Here we will connect the sample superstore sales data. So we have this data, sample superstore sales data, which we will use throughout our course, and this data will help you in understanding various concepts of Power BI as well as many concepts of DAX. So in this data, we have already explained what this data is, but just for once again we are explaining that in this data we have orders. Every row here, so it is important, row wise context and filter wise context. Every row here is an order ID, like is an instance of an order. So for example, this order has two instances. This means in this order, in this one order, we have two products that were ordered. Okay, and here we have the product IDs and their names. Okay, and in each of the each instance of the order, how much sales was there and how much profit did we have for each sales. Okay, so we will load this data into our Power BI, and in this data we will have the three sheets. So when you will load Excel file, you already know we have, if we have multiple sheets in an Excel file, all three sheets are loaded, right? So we will select order this time, and we have already discussed how to join multiple tables. So we will select order this time, and once you are loading the data, just check whether all the columns are mapped properly or not. So I can see that all columns are properly mapped. That is, the first row is the header, and then we have the values. So now we will load this. So everything is now loaded, and we have sales. Okay, in order to understand the filter context here, what we are going to do is we are going to create a calculated measure that calculates the total sales. Okay, so measures, as we know, work as an aggregate, right? So it will calculate aggregate of all the rows and then present the data. So in order to create a measure, just go to modeling, and here click on new measure, and just write your DAX expression. It is showing error in our case because sales is not the name of the table. The name of the table is orders. Okay, so you have to write orders and then select the column. This is total sales, which is the name of the column, which in our case is only sales. Okay, so it is sales. So we will do this. So suppose you created a calculated column that has total sales. Okay, so it is just like that. When you will apply this, now when you add this measure to a report with a slicer for year, the filter context changes based on the year selected. Okay, so for example, what we are seeing here is, so now we have calculated total sales, and we can use a card to actually show this value in Power BI. So in order to show this value, just drag it to the card. Okay, it is saying 2.3 million total sales. Now what we will do is we also have order date. So we will drag order date as a slicer here. So in order to drag order date as a slicer, first of all make sure that in your table, whatever you have, your date is appearing properly. Okay. Now we have a slicer here, and when you will see date in my case, so this date has an expand option. When you will expand this, you will see year, quarter, month, and date. Okay. So this is the date hierarchy that is created in Power BI. What will happen is if you just want to add year in the slicer, so just drag year as the slicer. Okay, so it will show data of 2014 to 2017. So you just want to show 2014, you can do this, right? You want to show 2014 and 15. This, so as you can see, this slicer, although the calculated measure that we created, this calculated measure is an aggregate value that is that applied on all rows, but with this context filter, what is happening right now is, let's read the statement. Filter context combines all the filters that are applied through various means to determine what data is visible and therefore what data is used in calculation. Okay, so when we choose 2014-16 in the slicer, the filter context ensures that only sales from 2014 or 15 are considered in the total sales measure column. So just I will change it to 2014 just for example. So 2014 is correct. So when we select 2014 only, you will see the total sales for 2014 only. So this is just the basic, context of Power BI. In the similar way, there is calculate function also. Calculate function is very powerful because it allows you to modify filter context within a measure. For example, this was our measure, right? You can see sum of sales, total sales, which we created, right? So within this measure, if you just want to add, if you use calculate, you can add another parameter which will work as a filter. Suppose your data was given like, if your table was sales and your column was year, okay, and in your column dates were like 2021, 2022, dates were like this, right? So in that case, you could have calculated sales 2020, and what this would have done is calculate changes the filter context to include only those rows where year is 2020. So if the data was given like that, so that's why you have to use these functions accordingly, and we can also have interaction between row context and filter context. When row context and filter context intersect, things can get more complex. For example, in an iterating function which creates row context, you might need to reference the current filter context. So it is total sales above threshold. Suppose we are creating sum x, then we are using filter. In filter, we are applying filter on sales table, and we are saying that wherever in whichever row the total sales is less than 100, that means in every row we have the sales, right? So in every row, if total sales is less than 100, for example here is 261, here this, right, less than 100, less than 100. So wherever the total sales is less than 100, we will select total sales. Okay. So what this will do here filter iterates to each row in the sales table, creating a row context, and uses the filter context to determine If you remember, it uses the filter context to determine if total sales is greater than 100, as I gave you an example, right? What will you do? You will also go one by one and see, okay, in this it is not less than 100, in this it is not less than 100, in this it is, this it is. So your selection will be row wise. So it uses the filter context to determine if total sales is greater than 100. The sum x then sums the total sales values of the filtered rows. Okay, so it is a conditional thing. So whatever values we will get, sum x will sum the total sales values, and that way it will work. So as a summary, in row context, it operates on individual rows commonly used in calculated columns and inherit functions. And filter context applies filters to determine where data is visible, crucial, or measures and influenced by report element and DAX functions like calculate. So let's try to calculate this first of all. Okay, what we will do is, in our case, remember that name of table is orders. We will create a new measure. Here we'll have total sales above threshold. Let's say the threshold or KPI is 100, which is in this. So wherever sales is written, you just have to replace it with the name of our table, which is orders, and wherever total sales is written, we have to replace it with the name, which is sales. As I told already, you have to do it carefully. You have to remember the name of your table and name of your columns very carefully. Now sum x filter. So filter will, it will go inside out, right? Just like a board mass, bracket of then divide multiply. It works from inside. So first filter will work, and filter will see in orders. If order sale is greater than 100, it will collect all those values, and then sum x will do the sum and apply. So this is total sales above that. Okay. We can use a card. So with the condition that sale was more than, in each row the sale was more than $100. If we sum all of that, we will get 2.1 million. So this is how row context and filter context work in Power BI.